On February 4th this year, a day celebrated as World Cancer Day, the message the Cancer Association of South Africa, or CANCER, emphasized was that cancer is not beyond us in terms of cancer control and reducing the impact of the disease. On today's show, we'll hear the story of two women who, like many survivors out there, decided from the get-go that cancer would not be the end of them. Welcome to Bophelong with me, Rufil Wemwilo. Last year on Bophelong, breast cancer survivor Joyce Machiwisa told us how her faith, in conjunction with a great medical team behind her, got her through the most hellish time in her life. Today, Joyce has a book named The Walkable Journey, taking her inspirational journey to greater heights. Let's see a brief snippet of Joyce's story.
She was at the peak of her career. Her life had never been better. A clean bill of health, and finally about to start a job that she's been waiting for an entire year. It was in the early hours of 2008 that Joyce Machiwisa's life took an unexpected turn for the worst. Eager to make a good impression at work, Joyce left home early, making her way to the office, only to never make it.
2008, April, I was on my way to work, and after getting off from the taxi, I was knocked by a car on my way to work, and that was my new job. I had expectations that I will be the person that I wanted to be. I will help my mom. I will take care for my son. But things didn't work out the way I thought. I had to go to Leratong Hospital where they didn't admit me. They have to put cement there. And then I had to use crutches for more than a month and 2 weeks. It was not easy, because now my employer called me and told me that I mustn't come back anymore because of they found someone who's going to replace me.
It was after her release from hospital that Joyce's health deteriorated. Her breast darkened in color. She started experiencing constant sharp pain on her chest. It was when she returned back to hospital that Joyce discovered that she had stage 4 of breast cancer.
Still working with the crutches, and they diagnosed me with breast cancer. They did the biopsy, and everything was just in a short period of time. I was busy on a healing process. The accident, now breast cancer. When I was writing my obituary, that was when I was on a pampers, when my mom put the pampers on me, bathing me, and I couldn't even hold a teaspoon. I was depending on them to feed, to do almost everything to me.
Although Joyce thought she would not survive such a turmoil, she absolutely did, and now has a book called The Walkable Journey.
What a story. Just some food for thought. Currently, 8.2 million people die from cancer worldwide every year, and in South Africa, more than 100,000 are diagnosed annually. Stay with us. After the ad break, we hear of a lady with incredible willpower to live and the resilience of mind and body.
On what really happens at the SABC, straight from us. Read our cover story to experience the world through the eyes of Bonang Mateba. Get to know the fresh faces of our new primetime telenovela Uzalo, and join in the 50th birthday celebrations of Mungana Lonene FM and Palapala FM, all in the latest issue of Evoke magazine. Don't miss out. Get yours at sabcevoke.co.za or download the app and stand a chance of winning a double ticket to the 2015 Belgian Grand Prix.
We live in a digital era, and the number of Africans with mobile phones is rapidly increasing.
Twitter use is predominantly being done on smartphones. This is a very African phenomenon.
Here, there are constantly new innovative ways to make the internet more affordable. With that, we're seeing protests against governments proposing methods to limit access. On Network, we give you information about all of this. We also have new computers, games and robots.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
Media Monitor. The title says it all.
We do have a dilemma here because Lesotho is a sovereign country. I don't think it is the obligation of South Africa's media to even tell the people of Lesotho what's going on in Lesotho.
Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. That's Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali. Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome back to Bophelong. In today's show, we're profiling phenomenal women who have beaten the odds to survive cancer. Up next is the story of Ingrid Jacobus, a fitness enthusiast, mother and cervical cancer survivor. Take a look.
Ingrid Jacobus' story is not different from many other women who are diagnosed with cancer daily. She was diagnosed with cervical cancer after having 3 children. The 49-year-old Gauteng born and bred was alarmed. She plucked courage to get her through the strenuous journey she was faced with.
I was on leave and I haven't had a pap smear in years. And the reason I didn't have a pap smear was I always thought to myself, I'm married. I'm in a stable relationship. Why do I have to go? What can I get? And then I don't know what it was that made me decide. No, in fact, I think I know what it was. The GP is a lady and she was doing pap smears and I decided, okay, fine, I'll go to her because no one really wants to go for pap smears. We don't really enjoy them. So I booked for this pap smear and I went, but not actually thinking that there's going to be anything wrong with me or anything. And went for the pap smear. I put it right out of my head. And then went back to work and she didn't call. So I thought, okay, fine, they only call you when something is really wrong. But in the meantime, they found abnormal cells, but the doctor herself also wasn't in the offices at the time. So about 3 weeks later, she phoned me and she said to me, don't be alarmed. It may or it may not be cancer. So I went to see a gynecologist and she looked, and when she looked as well, when she examined me, she said to me, look, I can see something, there's definitely something, I don't like the look of it. So she cut off something, I think it's called a biopsy, and she made an appointment for the following Friday. It was a Valentine's Day, and she called me in and she said, look, I'm sorry, it is cancer, it's stage 1 and it's about 5 millimeters big and I'm going to have to send you to a surgeon.
This was not her first diagnosis. Before this, she was diagnosed with scleroderma. It's an autoimmune disease that occurs when the body produces and accumulates too much collagen in tissues. Collagen is a fibrous type of protein which makes up the body's connective tissues, including the skin. This can cause the skin tissues to be very sensitive.
Normally, if you have cervical cancer, one of the things that they do is try to cut it out as quickly as possible or as much as possible. And with me, they couldn't do that because of scleroderma. Scleroderma, it affects the skin, so it hardens, or if I cut myself, I don't heal properly, or it takes very long. And a surgery that big, a total hysterectomy would have been too risky. So they had to decide what to do with me because they won't be able to cut it. In fact, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I didn't think that it was possible. I thought, God, you gave me scleroderma. Now you're giving me cancer. What am I supposed to learn? What's the lesson?
Ingrid is fortunate enough to have a positive and supportive structure, including her friends and husband.
They eventually sent me off to 2 oncologists, and they decided, okay, fine, chemotherapy and radiation. And I think that through it all, I don't know, when they first told me about it, you know, when you hear people talk about, oh, this happened and that happened, and you listen to them, but you don't sort of feel what they are going through. But the minute it happens to you, you know, you sit in, not totally in shock, because you still can hear what they are saying to you, but you try to handle it. And I think I handled it okay, because Trevor was with me when I was diagnosed. And then, of course, I told Margaret, and Margaret always has a positive side to everything.
Her friend Margaret Hill is one of her positive sources as she helps Ingrid and her family. Cooking meals for the family while Ingrid was in hospital was one of a few ways she could assist.
The most important thing about cancer is that 20 years ago it was, or even 40 years ago, it was very much a death sentence. That today it's not a death sentence at all. That a lot of people beat cancer.
Her husband Trevor was more than shocked when he learned that his wife was diagnosed with yet another life-threatening disease.
Speaking to friends who were positive would help me be positive, and I could be positive and strong for the rest of the family. So it was that sort of approach, you know. I wasn't going to go Googling cervical cancer and how to deal with it. I tried to read a little bit more about it, you know, to be a little more informed. But I thought for me the important thing was to try and be strong.
Although her husband was against telling the kids, she also found it hard to tell the kids without frightening them. But eventually, they both found a way.
It's all around stupid. They can pick up immediately if something is wrong. So I had to tell my kids. And the youngest one burst out crying. The older one just sat down and just the tears were thinking about. I think the minute you reassure them that in the times that we live in now, cancer is not that, you can fight it. I took them each, every time I went, I would take one of them with me if I could. I took the youngest one with me so that they could see. And also that they could see that not everyone is bald or has no hair or looks like a skeleton, because you go in for radiation. Yes, we did see people with no hair, but we also saw people that they still had all their hair on their head, and that there is hope. But not everyone dies from cancer, and it's also nice that they could go to the chemo place or the radiation place and see a success story.
While taking her treatment, physical exercise was prohibited by her oncologist to avoid infections and viruses. She says willpower sustained her.
I was reasonably healthy, I'm fit, and I eat well. I'm not running around and doing life-threatening things like drinking too much or anything else, so it went smoothly for me.
With the support from her family, Trevor witnessed his wife growing from strength to strength.
When she was going for chemo, you could see tiredness and strain and nausea. But I didn't see a breakdown in spirit, you know. Just the physical side of it, yes. I saw that, but not in spirit.
Feeling sick and weak did not stop Ingrid from keeping fit and working out.
Just talking to other people in the same situation, other ladies, I realized that exercising was helping me cope. Look, it wasn't easy. You're tired, and I think that's the worst about the treatments. You feel fine. You know, and that's the thing with cervical cancer, you feel fine, you feel healthy, it doesn't hurt, it's sneaky. And the minute they give you the treatments, you start feeling it, because you feel tired, you feel your head is in cotton, or you can't quite think properly. Because I'd go to work, because I didn't stop working, it was only the last 2 weeks that I actually just went in maybe once a week or something. Because all you can do is just lay down and just lay or sleep. Your head is so fuzzy that you can't even read. And that is the thing that I found the most difficult to cope with, the fact that you can't concentrate, you can't focus.
Worried about the combination of scleroderma and stage 1 of cervical cancer, Margaret stayed positive and in prayer, knowing that Ingrid was one strong person.
She said to me, no, that she didn't know what she was going to do, and I just said to her, well, you're just going to carry on. And, immediately, death was not even a thought. She knew that she had to obviously go through whatever it was, but that chemo would be probably part of it. I think she was more worried about losing her hair, and then in the end it wasn't even a problem.
Her message to others that have been diagnosed with cervical cancer is simple.
Don't give up, because there's always hope. You take it one day at a time. And with me, those first few days, it was like, take it every hour, an hour at a time. And speak to people about it. Because I felt that the more I spoke to others and shared it with others, the better I felt. And I can honestly say that I didn't lose sleep, laying awake at night and thinking, oh, I'm dying. I didn't think about that. And I think also that's probably because of my faith as well. That I believed that I was exactly where God wanted me to be. And that if it was His will, I don't have a choice.
According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, more than twice as many people die from cancer than from AIDS, malaria and TB combined. The World Health Organization projects that without immediate action, the global number of deaths from cancer will increase by nearly 80% by the year 2030, with most occurring in low and middle income countries. After the break, I'll be joined by the head of advocacy from the Cancer Association of South Africa.
Issue of Evoke magazine at sabcevoke.co.za or download the app on iOS or Android and immerse yourself in our world.
Welcome back. Our show today has been about cancer, and we heard the stories of two courageous survivors who shared their amazing stories of triumph over what to some may seem like insurmountable challenges. I'm now in studio with Magdalene Seguin, the head of advocacy at Cancer South Africa. Ma'am, welcome to the show, and just thank you so very much for coming through.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Now, we've seen and heard, from the World Health Organization and from cancer, in terms of statistics, specifically to South Africa and the Sub-Saharan region, cancer statistics are not so positive.
Not at all. There is what the cancer control experts describe as a cancer epidemic in Africa and worldwide as well, but it's mostly in developing countries.
What are some of the reasons for that? Because it's filtering down to, lower and middle class communities.
Yes. To really put it broadly, it's lack of resources, and that includes human resources. It's also, there are many myths, and there's a stigma in African communities. And also, people live in far off rural areas where they don't have access to quick access to care.
Sure.
So that is a stumbling block.
And for those people, I'm sure, obviously, with regards to something like cancer that does need, Western care, the first line of treatment, or consultation will be people who have many stories about what it could be and using different things to treat it until it gets to late stages. And what are just some of the things that cancer is doing to get out into these communities, to get the message that, this, as long as you detect it early, is actually, treatable?
Absolutely, Rafil. Where our main focus at the Cancer Association of South Africa is early detection. We don't use the word prevention, we use the word reducing your risk for cancer, because 30 to 40% of cancers are lifestyle related, and therefore you can reduce your risk. Also, what I wanted to mention earlier is that in Africa we also have very peculiar situations, like we have, for instance, in bladder cancer, we have pockets in Africa where the water is infested with the snails, and they pass on, they are the intermediary host to have humans infected when they swim in those waters or drink those waters, that they can have bladder cancer. And in South Africa, we've actually had 3 endemic areas. And then we also have viruses like, the Epstein-Barr virus, which causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, is very, very prevalent in Africa. So the Western or the first world, what they call the first world medicine, don't have really the problems that we have in developing countries, and especially in Africa.
Oh, wow. Now, with regards to, some of these viruses, and let's move it, back to South Africa. What are the most prevalent types of cancers that are seen within South Africa?
I'll start with children. With children, leukemia, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, also retinoblastoma. That is, and in children, the cancers are completely different from adult cancers, because most of them are related to hereditary conditions. And so the top cancers for children in South Africa is completely different, but leukemia is the top cancer in South Africa. And we do have we do have a program for children. We have, I'm happy to say that we have 3 homes as well, one in Cape Town, one in Durban, and one here in near the Steve Biko Hospital. It's on the Steve Biko grounds, actually, the academic hospital there. So what we do there is, because the treatment for children is completely different from adults, it's very often and it is very, very intense. So we offer a place for a guardian or family member to stay.
Okay.
And with adult cancers in women, it is breast cancer is the top cancer, and then cervical cancer as well. But because our National Cancer Registry is also not completely updated, we only received the 2009 stats, and that was because of technical problems. And but
2009, and this is 2015 right now.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
It is also because in South Africa we have what we call the caviar of registries, which is based only on cytology and on histology. That means from biopsies. But, people that get diagnosed clinically are not necessarily
part of that registry. Wow.
So what the Cancer Association did and what we lobbied for is to make cancer a registrable disease. And the Minister of Health, he really, really went out of his way to have the Health Act amended so that everybody now in South Africa, so in the next 10 years or so, we will have the true figures. And also, our programs where we collect money from people, we've got our signature programs, so we collect money from communities. And that money, for instance, we are partners with Movember, where men make their moustaches grow. So they gave us 2 million. Awesome. And also the Cancer Association also brought 2 million from our operational funds so that we can train, so that the National Cancer Registry can train coders to make this process goes, because then we know what the real problem is and how then we can address it strategically.
That is awesome, you know, the work that the Cancer Association does. Yes. And just with regards to cervical cancer, I mean, earlier we saw Ingrid's story and she had cervical cancer. How far is spreading the word about the HPV vaccine right now, you know, because from high school, you know, I should think the message should be getting out and to women, regardless of whether they're sexually active or not.
Yeah. No, you are absolutely right, and you know, that is actually the whole crux of the matter, and that is why there was a rollout in 2013 of the actually 2014, I'm sorry, of the HPV virus, the human papilloma virus vaccine in schools, and the reason why it's given for young girls aged 9 and 10 is because that is before sexual debut, so that they are protected. And also, you know, the vaccine itself is registered from the age of 9 to 26 years of age.
Sure.
So that is the best chance to because human papilloma virus, I mean, most people in their life get the, you know, contract the virus, but your immune system, but it's only with persistent infection that it will make the cells mutate and change and then turn into the lifetime history of cervical cancer. Before we really knew about the HPV virus was isolated, is 10 to 15 years. So you can see it's a disease that can be early
dormant
detection.
For a long time.
It can be dormant for a long time, and it can be easily treated in its early stages.
All right, yeah. So just, you know, in closing, I mean, Magdalene, how do we then, even just in our small little parts, in our families, in our communities, without, you know, it having to be on radio or TV, get the message out that, you know, yearly screenings and changing mindset even of people is really, really important?
Absolutely. And we at the Cancer Association, we have a mobile unit. So look out for the mobile units, one in each province. We do pap smears and all other tests. And we even do skin mapping for skin cancers. And we only don't stop there. We do blood sugars and blood pressures and things like that. So if there's anything that is caught, then we can refer those people. And then we have about 60 offices throughout the country in all the regions, and we work in all the communities, and we also work in big cities with the corporates. Awesome. So on wellness days, so look out. We've got our social media platforms,
the Shave-a-thon,
all those.
I mean, the work that the Cancer Association does is absolutely awesome, Magdalene. Thank you so very much. And of course, one thing that is, you know, key in beating a disease like this, like we've seen in Joyce and Ingrid's story, is mindset. The willpower to say, this is not going to beat me.
Absolutely, and also to take responsibility for your own health. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. As you've heard from Magdalene, who is the head of advocacy at the Cancer Association of South Africa. As the stereotype has been perpetuated in many African communities, cancer is not just a white disease, and it is not a death sentence. Despite the gloom and doom statistics we get from the World Health Organization and other organizations, there are people and stories of hope in all our communities, like we've heard from Ingrid and Joyce. Early detection, regular health checkups, and a great medical team behind patients mean life will go on. Thank you so very much for joining me. Join me again next week as we look back on some of the stories that struck a chord with many of our viewers. Goodbye.